Hi everyone, it's Jama Malmi. Thanks for joining me today. I'm going to be sharing how I made this cute floral border card. But before I do, I wanted to remind you to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell to make sure you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. So I got this idea to do the floral border from a fellow consultant, Giselle Erickson, who did a beautiful card with flowers stamped around the edge. And so I did my own variation of that. I'm using archival black ink because it's waterproof and it's a really nice dark black. Now, you want to make sure you're using a waterproof ink if you're going to be doing watercoloring like I'm going to do. If you're going to be doing coloring with markers, particularly alcohol markers, you're going to want to use the intense black ink, which is also waterproof, so you could use that either way. But I like the really dark black that I get from the archival black ink. I'm just going around, and as I stamp, I'm trying to line it up as best I can with the previous stamped image, which wasn't too hard. When I got to the last corner, it was a little bit trickier, but it ended up okay. And anything that's overlapping, you're not really going to notice a whole lot. So the first thing I'm going to do is color with my stamp pad. And this is a great way to get more use out of those stamp pads that we have. I'm using the Evergreen, which is a pretty dark green, but because of the amount of water I'm using, I'm controlling how dark or how light it is. So a lot of the leaves are actually quite a bit lighter than if you were to actually stamp in this color. Now, when you do color with stamp pad ink, it doesn't spread as well as an actual watercolor ink. So whether you're using watercolor pencils or watercolors, this is a great way to get color on your page if you don't have watercolors, and to get more use out of your stamp pads. But just know that it's not going to spread as well as something made for watercoloring. But I actually really like the variation of color that you get. Since it doesn't spread a lot, you get a lot of kind of splotchiness, which I kind of like. So now I'm going to use another method, and that is watercolor pencils. And as you saw here, I was taking my water brush and putting it directly to the pencil. And I like doing it this way because I feel like I get more color saturation this way. There are lots of other ways you can use this, and I'm going to show you another way and kind of touch on that as well, but this is my preferred method. Now you could also color straight onto the paper with your colored pencil, and here I'm doing it onto dry paper. And so just beware, if you don't want to press really hard this way, because the watercolor pencils are pretty hard themselves, and you'll make indents in the paper if you press too hard. So a couple ways around that would be to either wet the paper first and then color lightly onto the paper. You'll probably get more saturation of color that way. Or another way is dipping the tip of the pencil in water. It might soften it up a bit and get more color on. So just find the way that works for you. This is how I prefer doing it, but there are lots of ways to do it. So I'm going to continue coloring the flowers. I'm using a couple different colors of purple. What I decided to do is color each type of flower a different color, and the way that they're spread evenly around the border, it works out well this way. These little flowers I'm doing in blue, and I'm adding more water because I wanted it to be kind of a light blue. It's kind of bright, and I didn't want it to be super bright, so the way I toned it down was adding more water. And then I'm going back to the stamp pad with Smoothie. I wanted these little berries to be smoothie. I thought the pop of color looked nice with the purples and blue. And then I'm also going to color that larger flower, looks like a rose maybe, with the smoothie as well. I don't know all the names of the flowers. My mom is an amazing floral designer, and she could tell me what each of these flowers are, I'm sure. I just know that they're really pretty and I love them. So once I finish this watercoloring, I am going to mount it onto some black cardstock. I like using black as an accent. I think it helps everything to really pop. I used the black as a background of the die cut as well because I wanted it to kind of pop off the page a little bit more. So I'm putting just a little bit of glue. I actually used too much here, and some of it's going to ooze out. And truth be told, I should not be using this glue. I really like this Tombow glue in the green bottle because I like the consistency of it, but it is a repositionable glue. It is permanent, but if you let it dry, it is also repositionable. So when it oozes out, it gets sticky instead of just drying. And so when it oozes out, it just kind of makes a sticky, tacky mess. So then I wanted to bring out that holograph paper a little more. Isn't that so cool? I love the holograph paper. And so I pulled out the silver mix of loose sequins, and it has a few, it has some iridescent pieces in it. Some of the stars are iridescent, and then some of the just regular circles are iridescent. I pulled out one of the stars thinking I might use it, but I ended up not because I didn't want the adhesive to show through it when I glued it down, and I was afraid that it would. So I took that one off, but it would be awesome if you're using a shaker card to use the star in it. Then I went ahead and adhered my base onto the paper that I watercolored. I used a lot of adhesive because I did watercolor and it warped just a tiny bit. I didn't use a ton of water, so it didn't warp a lot, but I wanted to make sure that I had plenty of adhesive around the edge. And if my sequins were dry, I would have put the adhesive right onto the watercolored piece, but the sequins were still wet, so didn't want to do that. So then I decided that I wanted to add a little bit of shimmer. Oh, here I'm trying to get some of the stick off. So this rub and remove eraser did help get some of that tackiness off of the holographic paper because it got on the holographic paper. And then I wanted to add some shimmer on the berries, and in hindsight, I could have actually used the shimmer brush as a watercolor brush. So you can actually use these shimmer brushes in place of a water brush and spread the watercolor that way, but I didn't think of it at the time. I should have, because I do use these brushes on pretty much all of my projects, but I didn't. So there is the finished project. I think it looks awesome. And then I also pulled out a couple of die cuts that I had done a long time ago. The hello on the left and the heart were just in my stash, and so I used that on the other piece that I had already done. Here is that awesome holographic paper. See how it picks up the blues and the purples from what I colored? Looks really awesome. So thank you so much for joining me today. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and if you're interested in any of the supplies that I used, I will link them all below. The stamp of the month is available only in February, and it is only $5 with a purchase of $50 or more on my Close to My Heart website. Thank you again for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.